2-1.
Exactly, 2-1.
And we're live.
Okay, guys. So we are live. I will start by always reminding you guys to like and subscribe. Um, we are trying to reach more creative thinkers and builders like you guys out there. As always, you can find Core at coreismagic.com. It is our discovery framework. I like to think of it as a branch strategy fundamentals framework. And it is always available at Core is Magic. So today and every Thursday, we're at 11 a.m., 2 p.m. Eastern. We've got office hours hosted by yours truly, Keone Chong. And we are here with our co-creators, Jose Caballer and Mary Gribbin. We are excited to facilitate today's session, and today is going to be really interesting because we're going to talk about, why do we have photos of us as children here, and what does that mean? I firmly believe that who we are as children and those powerful experiences are the things that really drive us to be our true selves in our adult lives and for us to contribute to the world and society at large. So, yeah. So, just a reminder, guys, we are preparing for launch. We do have the Accelerator program coming up in tomorrow's design therapy session. I will be sharing a little bit about that, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys. So, as always, what is our objective? Our objective is to build a platform for purpose-driven professionals designing the future. It is brought to you by the Systm, our company. What is the Systm? It's a social learning experiment. We are trying to find the best ways, the best tools, the best community, the best guidance to empower the next generation of creative leaders and builders to redesign the world. So in today's agenda, we'll have the drop-in as we always do. We'll dive into the defrag for a few minutes just to really set the mindset. And today we're going to be talking about the origin of core. Jose's powerful purpose, is an incredible story, and I think it's really going to illuminate for many of you what core is really founded in, and what core believes, and what core aims to help you achieve in your lives. Then we'll dive into our core Q&A. So any and all questions in regards to core and the facilitation of core and the translation of core. Then we'll dive into the download for about 10 minutes. And then we'll have the upload. So let's drop in. As always, it's a name, it's your location, and it's something really interesting about you. In today's drop-in, I would like for you guys to tell us about a time when you decided that creative thinking and building was your journey. And you were like, you know what? This is what I have to do. And I'll share my story. I'll model that for you. I'm Keone. I'm located in Los Angeles. And I decided that creative thinking and building was my journey. After a immense failure that I had built a successful family practice, and I was swiftly kicked out because my beliefs and my future vision was too profound for the people that were involved in that experience with me. And it challenged me to realize that the world that we live in is going to be full of, as we discussed last week, finite games. And if I wanted to play the infinite game, if I wanted to chase my infinite vision, then I needed to align myself with people that supported me and believed in that vision. And ultimately, they were friends. Like, I was homeless. I walked away from everything that I had built my entire life, and my friends had taken me in, and that started my journey. And they're all artists, they're all incredible artists and musicians, and it was their spirit and their belief that really empowered me to step into my own artistry, to my own creativity, and to create my own world. And so I will challenge Jose to have a little tidbit of that, and then Mary will go next, and then we'll do a little bit of popcorn.
Beautiful. Thank you, Keone. Jose Caballer. I am in downtown Los Angeles. Um, a time that creative thinking and building was my journey. Good question, Keone. Um, I think the decision was made for me. I didn't necessarily have this like realization. I had always been doing it, but the urge to build has always been there from my entrepreneurial kind of family, from building community because of having such a large family. Um, it really just has always been there by both example and by I don't know where it's coming from kind of place. So that's a horrible answer. It's like I don't know where it's coming from, but it's coming from somewhere. But it's a very strong urge, yeah, to create, to build. Legos, yeah, for sure. Even before Legos, it was there.
Thank you for sharing,
Yeah.
Jose. Mary?
Oh yeah, I'm just remembering the Matchbox car story that you talked about, like selling those when you were a kid.
Making stuff and selling it. That's
Yeah.
been I've been doing that since I'm 7.
Yeah.
And I got it from my grandmother.
And then when I met Jose, he had like his desk at Razorfish was just like incredible. He built like a bed next to his desk so he didn't have to leave the office. He had like this whole Lego workstation set up, and it was just amazing.
I won the award for messiest desk in the company.
Oh my god. Yeah. So for me, okay, let's think about this. I've always been drawn to art and dance because my mom was a dancer and a teacher and had this dance studio when I was a little girl. And so I always have been drawn towards like the arts and expression, self-expression. But when I really realized that I wanted to be a designer was when I moved back to New York after I was in school in Paris, and I started working at this art gallery. And the gallery, there was just art everywhere, obviously. And I loved being in that space, surrounded by art, surrounded by people, thinking about art and composition and putting shows together. And then I started designing there, like before digital, doing print design. And I just, yeah, that's when I decided I really wanted to be a designer, when I really knew that was the journey for me. And so then I went back to grad school and stuff and started studying it. So that's my journey around creativity and building. Yeah. Who wants to, you could just popcorn.
Yeah.
Anyone who wants to go next?
Yeah. Pape, you had an awesome story that you had shared in the chat.
Oh.
Yeah. Do I say it or I don't know?
Yeah.
Like,
drop in.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Pape from Panama, this little paradise in Central America. I'm originally from Colombia, but I've been living here for 10 years. And I think it began when I started skating. I always wanted to skate when I was little. And I think my parents were afraid of letting me skate because they were just scared. So when I was living in France, I started skating and doing longboarding and downhill skating. that became like my passion. Like I was doing it every single day. And I remember the third board I bought, the graphic was just amazing. And it just, something resonated inside of me that I started drawing again, because I drew when I was little, and I stopped doing it because in Colombia or Latin America, you don't make a living as an artist or as a creative. So I started drawing again, and I loved it. I built, and I just knew it was what I always wanted to do. It resonated with me, music, like being around creative people, and the idea of making something that didn't exist, and the feeling of like just seeing it and manifesting it was something that just made me smile, and something I started discovering and following the process to become better at creating.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for that. Very, very powerful story. Uh, Patricia, you had a great story. Would you like to come on stage and share?
Sure. Hi, I'm Patricia Maliksi from Manila, Philippines. So I'd share my story. I feel like I was really born to create. I remember in college, our professor from an agency made us pitch ideas for a project on integrating marketing campaign. And I always felt like doing strategy. I didn't know that it was strategy, but creating, synthesizing ideas, presenting, it gave me so much happiness. And so I applied to ad agencies here in Manila. But no matter how much I tried, they didn't welcome me because we have our own design agency. So I feel like the industry was very secretive and very close to beginners like me. And to mind you, I was a very good student. I was an achiever, and I didn't make it. I wasn't welcomed because they felt that we have our own agency, that like we might take clients. I don't know. Maybe that's their impression. So I've had imposter syndrome for the very longest time because I didn't have that experience, industry experience. And so now, when I attended core, I felt validated. When I joined the core tribe, I felt validated. Thank you to all of you for your mentorship, because I now know that there's no right way of doing things, but just carving your path. And I really felt validated that, now I love creating, synthesizing, and building insights by using cars. So thank you to our mentors. I really treat you as my mentors. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Patricia.
Yeah, I just
Okay,
wanted to say one thing, that you're so beautiful and we're learning from you too. You're mentoring us. It's a whole mentoring thing happening. So thank you, Patricia.
Yeah, the experience goes both ways. And Shaquille, we'll end on you.
How's it going, everybody?
What's up, brother?
Yeah, so for those that know me from previous weeks, I technically still have a career as a software engineer. Those days are down to double digits, not quite single digits yet, but we're getting there. Yeah, so I grew up on hip hop, right? Like many of my generation, and Kanye West has always been my favorite artist because he's been able to transcend so many different boundaries and really genres, and he's also a master synthesizer. He's able to pull, from the very beginning, he was pulling out soul samples into hip hop and kind of revitalizing that sort of sound and experience. Anyways, through following him, I remember one time in one song called I Am a God, of all the songs, he name drops Virgil. And I was just like thinking, oh, this Virgil guy must be pretty cool. And then one day I looked him up. I'm like, okay, Virgil Abloh, who is this? Okay, guy started this clothing brand, started out as Pyrex 23. He became Kanye's creative director, like hustled to meet him through the same screen printer. And just like that kind of hustle is really inspiring. And then I found his lecture that he did at Harvard Graduate School of Design. And I was just blown away by his attention to detail. Like, forget the design, just like the mindset of thinking about like every single stitch that goes into a sneaker, or the thought process that goes behind, hey, we're going to put a red doorstop under the leg of a dining room chair because it goes into this whole idea of utility and ready-made from Duchamp. And like, there's this whole other thing behind the scenes that I didn't know anything about. I was just inspired by attention to detail. And I was thinking, okay, what if we just live our lives with that much intention in every aspect of life? We'll get exactly what we want. So that's kind of the thing that really got me hooked on this whole thing. That was November 1st, 2017 that I watched that lecture. So that was the beginning. And then, a whole bunch of interesting events since then.
Thank you so much for sharing, Shaquille. Ablo is he's up there on like one of my monuments of like really really powerful creatives.
For
He's
sure.
up there with Ai Weiwei for me. Kanye West is definitely up there. But I don't want to take too much time. I'd like to invite Hunter to the stage, and Hunter, I'd love for you to drop in. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is my first meeting here, so I just love to kind of explain what got me into this. I think hearing all your stories are very inspiring. I like hearing from other creative minds. I think nothing is better for a creative mind than speaking to other creatives. I think it really motivates you. It unlocks something in your brain to keep going. There's something about creativity where it's not just you being creative. It's like an attachment to something greater almost. Into talking to other people who have that attachment really strengthens that bond that you have with that other, whatever you want to call it, that cloud of creativity. So personally, I do comedy. I've been doing it for years now. It's really special to me. I never thought of myself as a creative beforehand, but somebody reached out to me and they said, "Hey, you should give it a shot. Come to this open mic night." And I did it, and I've been in love since. So, not to make this all funny or anything, but a little joke for you is how many years has creativity been around? Creativity, 8 years. 8 years it's been around. It's right there in the name, right? But that's one of my better ones. But yeah, I've been at it for about 7 years now. So just it's a passion. I'm hoping to gain those next steps, move to the proper cities. I've filmed a few specials too. You can find, I don't know if you guys have YouTube, but if you look up One Man Show, I'm Dying Up Here, the Hunter Jones special, that's my latest one. So go check that out. Thank you for the time. And I'm looking to hear from more of you.
Definitely. So Hunter, we're a community here, so definitely hop in the chat, share your socials. We all connect, we all communicate, we're all sending memes and jokes and chatting amongst each other. So it's a community that's completely inclusive, whatever your creative is. So welcome. And Brad, I'd love to have you kind of step on up and share and drop in with us. Has Brad returned?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was me. That was Bart. Sorry.
It's Bart.
Excuse me.
Brad's another user that just joined, I believe.
Yeah.
Bart.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So I just want to say thanks to everyone for sharing. I think heard a lot of great stuff. Hunter, that joke was really funny. I can't wait to look up your special. So for me personally, I think what Shaquille said about Kanye and the music industry, I've been drawn to music my whole life, really. And I'm 24 years old now. but in the last few years, I've really, tried to take it more seriously as an artist and putting stuff out there, recording, sending out demos, the like. And I figured I could talk about that, I could talk about that for hours, but what better way than playing something, if that's okay with you guys.
Bart, I'd really like to hear what you have. I'm really excited for this.
All right. If the audio is a bit wonky, it's because I'm wearing AirPods, and I don't know if it's going to be super clear. But here goes nothing. All right. And that's one of my pieces.
Awesome, man.
I don't know if you could hear that well, but
The
thank you
audio was
for giving the time.
no problem, man. So again, share in the chat any links that you guys have. We connect. It's all about supporting this community. We're all here to help you discover, your purpose-driven journey and that creative path, and we're here to motivate and inspire and to help guide you. So, welcome.
There'll be a new segment after the drop-in. We'll have special performances, comedy, music. That'd be awesome.
Talent show.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great idea.
Bart, that was
Talent
phenomenal.
show.
Do you mind, do you have time to do another piece for us, or is that? I
Well,
don't want
let's
to.
do it
I want to let everyone go. I want to let everyone else go, but
do it at the end.
if we have time at the end.
Yeah, we definitely do.
You can take us out instead of the usual like music.
Yeah, let's do that. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for the sharing. It was powerful. For those of you that I didn't call, I still read your chats. And Adriana, thank you so much for sharing. We really, really care. It's about you. It's not about us. So let's move on to our next segment, and that's the defrag. So the thing that as creatives, and Patricia alluded to this a little bit, is we always feel this imposter syndrome, and really what it comes from is, for so many of us, our creativity allows for us to have this infinite vision, this vision of a future or a possibility that very, very few people can see. And usually it's one person, it's you, that sees that. And this quote, uh you know I stumbled upon this quote earlier this week, and as Jose and I yesterday were sort of conceptualizing what the talk today was going to be about, it just really it hit me like a elephant, and I think it's super, super powerful, and it's just a reminder for ourselves to insist on yourself and never imitate. Your creative journey, and your why, the root of your experiences, they are always going to be unique for yourself. They're always going to differentiate yourself, and if you say true to your purpose, true to your why, true to your journey, you never have to worry about being unique. You are unique in that path all to yourself. And so let's dive in. So we're going to recap a little bit on the story so far, and this is an overview of really what the product line is going to be in the coming months. For all of us here, I hope that you're here because you're familiar with core and using it as a discovery, a process, using it as a way to build brands, using it to determine the brand elements for what you're building. But we understand that it's just a part of the process, and so it's very much a how, but it really doesn't provide the why, and we're working on that. The why is going to be a kit that we're going to be releasing very shortly, and it's going to be called Fire. and it's going to be about purpose, values, and skills. For those of you that are creative and really looking to help find your purpose in your journey, it's going to be a powerful tool for you to do that and align yourself and your activities and your energy and your emotions to really help you, you know, help you get on that path to find the motivation. um, for brands, for teams, it's going to be a really powerful way for teams and startups and communities to really define their own purpose and their values and the skills that are going to really activate them on that journey. And it's the first step. I think it's really the foundation behind core. If core is the rocket ship that's going to take you there, fire is the foundation and the fuel. It's the launch pad. And flow, which will be Mary's kit, is going to be about teamwork. It's going to be how uh, you can collaborate with your co-creators and really execute. um, it's about the objective results and tasks. And so, a reminder, we are prepping for the Systm Accelerator, and we see this as really the future of work. It's about community collaboration and guidance. And so we're going to have 5 primary spaces for us to learn and build and play together. We're going to have broadcasts. So all of the broadcasts that we show here will be there and archived. We'll have circles. So this is where we can dive into smaller groups and really work on our own projects, work on projects with clients, and get the guidance necessary to make sure that we keeping the momentum and ensuring that we're delivering value. We will have a vault, so it's going to be about our mindset principles, but most importantly, it's going to have tools, techniques, and documents. So frameworks that we use to solve certain problems that we've come across in all of our experiences. Um, we're going to have techniques, um, and we're going to have actual documents. So if you guys want to see how we put together a statement of work for $1 million digital engagement, we've got that inside. If you guys want to see how we built core to help build $1 billion startup, we've got that inside. If you want to see us, how we, put together a lot of the creative briefs, if you want to see how we put together our statements of work, you guys will actually get to see real world examples by us, the folks that actually did these projects. And we're really excited to share them with you. You guys are on incredible journeys and you guys are designing the future. And we want to make sure you guys have all the skills and tools and techniques necessary to help you guys get there. And then last but not least, play, right? Work isn't valuable if we're not having fun together. So we're going to have book clubs. We're going to look at a way that we can integrate, like body work, so meditation or yoga, but also, on the deep work on yourselves. So journaling and having guests really talk about the psychological impact of these things. Sketching and art therapy is something that has been really powerful for me, and I have some guests that can't wait to share their experiences with you and what that path and that journey looks like. And then of course fun, having a movie night, animes that we're watching, One Piece, yeah, and music, right? I have a background as a DJ and on the radio and like underground, and so I've got tons of stuff that I'd love to share with you. But we've got an incredibly creative community here, and I'd love to hear everyone else's music's inspirations and the stuff that you guys use to kind of get in the mode and help create. So this will be launching at the beginning of next month. And tomorrow, if you guys join us on Design Therapy, I'll be doing a kind of behind the scenes look, and I'll be allowing for some of us to be able to get inside and as just a soft launch, kind of get a feel for what's going around and start to check it out. put on the suit, see how it feels. Like, I like
I
this.
saw it yesterday, and it's looking pretty awesome. So really great job, Keone. It's going to be so much fun to be inside community with all of you.
Yeah. So, just to recap, the pricing, and this was something that we did collaboratively. So we are going to have a newsletter, and so a newsletter is going to be just a recap of the session tools and techniques and current events and global trends, and that will be bi-monthly. Uh, then we're going to have, if you're a member of the Accelerator, you will automatically get access to that email blast, but you also get access to the community inside. So being able to access all of the archives, being able to access the documents, being able to, join in the community, catch all the broadcasts. And then the fire kit, so this kit that we discussed earlier, we're looking at it being priced around 350, and that launch will be in May. So keep an eye out for that. So as we step into today's session in Jose's origin story, the download that I'd like for you guys to take with this is that your why is that experience as a child that imprinted on you in such a memorable way that it left this memorable worldview. And you have spent your entire life living out that purpose. So I'll give you an example. Tony Sue from Zappos, he talks about the experience for him as a child and how it was such a memorable worldview that he has continued to live it out. So he wrote the book Delivering Happiness. That's the right title, right, Jose? Delivering
It
Happiness.
is, yeah.
I believe it's
Tony Shea is
Delivering
amazing,
Happiness.
and he's like a little boy. He's passed actually a few months ago.
Yeah. Rest in paradise. But he really had a provocative impact on the way that we should work. He was one of the first startups to really embrace a holocratic work system where people worked in circles instead of hierarchical structures, and that their goals in life, in the work, was to deliver happiness. Selling the shoe was just the what, but ultimately why they were doing the work that they were doing was to deliver happiness. And he
It's a
has
great book. It's a great book to read.
Yeah. And Jose, if you can you pull up like the link and like post it in the chat.
Yeah, I can for the book.
Awesome.
For sure.
And I want to leave you guys with this. He had a talk about a year ago, and he's actually hanging out with Simon Sinek, and he talks about his why and how it delivered him to create this shoe company that was really focused on delivering happiness. And his earliest memory was as a child growing up and capturing like fireflies and using them as a light. And the way that he interpreted that experience was that it is his job in life to capture the brilliance of people, no matter who they were or what they were. If he was involved with them, they all had a light to shine, and that it was their job to take that light and shine the path for other people. This is a dude that has a shoe company, but his why, right? His personal creative journey was so purposeful that it didn't matter what he was doing. He was always determined to help galvanize the people around him and use that power, that team collective, to shine the light and illuminate the world for the rest of the world. It was a really incredible story. I'm going to try to find that link and I'm going to post it later. But that's the download for today, and that's something that I'd love for you guys to take away with us in today's session. So let's dive in. And let's talk about the origin story of Core. I'm so excited to talk about this. It's a very powerful story. Jose is an incredible individual, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. So let's start.
No, thanks for making me do this, Keone. This was we were talking about this yesterday, and getting to the why of all this being in existence and what it's about, and having to dig deep into the past. It's a journey. So a long time ago in the Dominican Republic, in a galaxy far away, they experienced this as a child that kind of changes forever. And in the next slide, I talk about summers in the Dominican Republic with my grandmother, Porfiria Perez Acosta, which is why I love Patricia's dog's name, Facundo. There's these old timey Spanish names like Porfiria and Facundo, and they're really awesome. And she has in her house, she passed about 4 years ago, but she had all 22 of her grandchildren up, and we had a really big family. But every summer I would spend there. It was really a great opportunity to do creative stuff and build. And she was an ultimate entrepreneur. She had a store. It was kind of like a pots and pans and patty wax kind of store right across the street from her house for a long time. And I used to work there and like sell stuff. But also I would use all the packaging, because everything comes from China. Like we have now, I would use all the packaging to build stuff with it, like, little cars, little this, and, and then there was things like, art supplies in the store, like paints and the brushes and markers and pencils. And I would just not steal, but like buy at a discount, i.e. free, to make everything from race tracks, and go get cement, from the neighbor who was building a floor, and like, make the tires out of clay from the river. It was just like an non-stop industrious thing. She used to sew, so I would design something and give it to her, and she would actually make it for me. And like anything I wanted, like you could build it and you can make it. I would spend my time drawing all summer, and also reading sci-fi. Read all the Lord of the Rings trilogy there, etc. So it was just this really beautiful thing. She built schools, several schools in the Dominican Republic, which was one really big thing. But I always asked the question, like, where does my creativity come from and my entrepreneurship come from? And I realized that, she was really the model for it for me. And that even my mom, though she was a biologist, was super creative and loved to sew, and was always a hustler, always had a side hustle, consignment clothing, like anything, that was just really creative. My uncle became the one person that didn't go to college. He dropped out because he had a fight with the dean of students. He became the most successful entrepreneur in the entire family, and helped maintain and like grow the family over the many years, and still is kind of like that role, still plays that role in the family, though now he's older. So that being a child of of a family in a developing country that used education to kind of build what they did was really powerful. And it always searching always for fulfillment, on slide 22, and impact for other people's lives. And the story that I told Keone yesterday, and that's really simple. In Christmas, because of the role that my grandma played in the community of being like a community provider and a community center, we would go, my uncle would come and pay for and buy like all this extra food, just rice and beans and oil, and like the basic like necessities that people might have, laundry, soap, etc. And they would make all these care packages for different people in need in the community, and no one would ever go the holidays without lacking in any way. So if anybody in the community that somebody said, hey, so and so needs help, so and so needs this, and if the Dominican Republic, at least in the time, this is in the 80s and 90s, it's still a developing nation, and communities have this kind of disparity between those who have and those who don't. And ultimately, the decision to jump into a creative business or into design was really very natural for me, even though I was groomed to be a pastor, because my family is very, 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 very religious. So I really decided to become a designer, and as I built my practice, at Razorfish, and then which was an early digital agency, and then at The Group, which was an agency that I started after I left Razorfish with Mary, actually, and a few other partners. It was, challenging and difficult. A lot of the things, from defining projects to maintaining scope. But the biggest thing for me was finding meaning in the work and doing work that I was aligned to. So at first we did advertising projects, and I said, no, I don't want to do this. Then we did, startups and kind of like arts nonprofits. We put it into our business plan, and we also put it into our brand statement, that we worked with, innovative companies and companies that were trying to do, good in the world. And we ended up getting a lot of that just because we put it into what we said. And there was a lot of alignment between the clients and the work continuously. And because we did startups, we had to do things in a very different way. And we weren't a large agency, and we couldn't charge, a couple $100,000 for a discovery phase, and then another couple $100,000 for the design phase, and then, $500,000 to build. And now it's $1.5 million project. We had to do it for a lot less. And we did it. Startups are very ADD. So it's kind of very difficult to get, the stakeholders, even scheduled. So putting them all in the room at the same time with the founders, with the CEO, CTO, sales lead, design team, any of those things that you might have in a small, in an upstart, even if it's 2 people or 3 people, putting them in the room and doing discovery with them in one day, which is originally, or 2 days, which was originally how we used Core, was really the way that we were able to get things started in a direction. It wasn't all of it. It wasn't like super complete, but they also didn't want that. If you spent too much time doing strategy and you weren't building their products and putting them into the market to validate it, or, just an MVP, a beta test, if you weren't making it as you were thinking about it, it was a waste of time for the most part. If you understand how to build startups, you can make a lot of stuff and waste most of the time because, you didn't validate it with customers before. So it was really part of that. And when I started building the school, when I decided, I don't want to do an agency anymore, I first called it Evil Businessman, because people, what creative person in their right mind wants to go to a school to learn the business of design? No, nobody does. So I was just being funny and going back to comedy, and to, the idea of writing that in was really important to be, I wouldn't say sarcastic. I would say it was more, what's the right word for that? Satire. So similar to how Stephen Colbert played a conservative commentator, I played an evil businessman on stage and really taught my community a lot of things. And slowly but surely, over a few years, a lot more community involvement happened, all the way down to when Chris Stowe and I met, and he's like, I what are you doing? I kind of like it, and let's do it together, was something that evolved out of those conversations. But it was done with the community. Every single step was done with the community. Even, from launching Agency in a Box, which was one of the first kits, which was just the entire process of the group, the agency that we used. One of the advisors and early customers said, the most valuable thing in all that was those 3 exercises. You should just sell that and stop selling all the other stuff. So that's when we created the first version of Core. Which was just based on one person's comment, who was an advisor, and I actually helped him build his startup. And if you fast forward, to what Core has done, as I've been now testing it for years now, for 6 years, outside of my agency now, in different permutations and teaching it, and the primary mode of really getting designers interested in brand strategy and user experience and business, not necessarily because of the component of the kit itself. That's been great. It's what it is, but it was really to motivate and to instigate and to help creative people succeed, because I saw the challenges that people like my grandmother and my mom, and just entrepreneurial people, especially women and women of color, in a patriarchal, in a very kind of business, evil businessman. It's like I made this when I was launching Evil Businessman, and it's really funny. It's like one of those wooden desk plaques, and it just says Evil Businessman on it. The reason why I built this for creative people and for myself, and why it's, you know, colorful and like fun and engaging, was because it needed to resonate, and also the simplicity of it and being example led versus being like process led. And that has changed a little bit over time, but it was really ultimately to help those people that are other, you know, myself included, you know, and startups included. Most of the people I know and that do startups are pretty kind of crazy, freaky people, and you have to accept them as other, and you need to work with them where they are. Like you don't, at least those are the people that I attracted. So I guess I'm attracting weirdos like me. But I've had a lot of fun, and, you know, it built the future. Core built the future, which what you know now as the future, which was originally called the school, and, you know, to 3.5, 4 million, where I think is where Chris has it now, in the business model that I originally did for Evil Businessman. And that was to transition from being an agency to being, you know, for Chris to transition to being an agency to being online education, you know, something like not the model that I would have used to build the future, but it's a good model to use, the guru business model. From the projects, and Keone wanted me to mention the recent EO rebrand of the Everyone product, which we've been sharing, and I'll be sharing more on social media. That was really building a brand inside a company that was a product-led company, and teaching and sharing how to do that, and consolidating departments and educating. It was really doing everything that I did with the school inside a company, and more so than using all that to rebrand the company itself, or one of their key products that makes most of the revenue. And for a lot of reasons, including COVID, including a lot of the direct-to-consumer marketing that started to happen, they are, you know, they went from 70 million in 2019 to 90 million in 2020. So that was a really nice jump. Now, culturally, the company had already began shifting those aspects of their operations, marketing and product and creative, into a unified kind of brand studio, right before COVID happened. And then finally, one of the startups, or one of the launches that I did before Everyone, a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, One Drop, which is a startup by the former founder of Razorfish. And one of the things he really shared with me, one is that core was the Razorfish process, because it's true. We borrowed a lot of the components from, you know, the process committee that I was on when we were developing the process in the 6 years that I was there. And secondly, he's like, oh, I'm familiar with this, thanks. And secondly, he basically voiced, having done several startups at that point that had successful exits, either sales or going public, or both, that the hardest part for a founder, CEO, creative entrepreneur is to align their vision with the vision of all their people and go in a direction so that they can get traction. That's usually what he saw the biggest messiness is in the projects around him that he saw, and that this just helped them get really quick direction and set what he needed to do to do fundraising, to build a team, and then to continue to do fundraising. And he raised over $100 million in the last 3 years, and the company is doing really well. I'm about to order the product, actually, because I need to. So the journey is really from the Dominican Republic to, you know, to design, to how do we empower creative entrepreneurs like my family and the people that I saw struggling and need to succeed. And that's really the why I've done it for this many years. I promised my grandma that I would come back and I would help her build a school, and she passed before I was able to accomplish that, and it was while I was building the school. So this is really for her. I want to do a project where we get all of your pictures as kids and we put it up on the website, or on some of the stuff that we're doing, like the same way that we're doing it with that wall is create a wall with Patricia and with, you know, Shaquille and with everybody as kids, and with Aurelio as kids. Because we are the kids, we're the system. And that's why we said we're Hanya last week. We're all Hanya. You know, we're all one. We're all together. So that's the story. Thank you, Keone, for forcing me to share it.
Keone, we can't hear you.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Technical difficulties. Um, Thank you so much for sharing, Jose. That story meant a lot for me, like really understanding and seeing how core has really been an extension of like your life's journey and your life's purpose. And we have very similar journeys, which is why we work so well together. But I need to ask, is this you right here in the middle?
Oh, the one with the I don't know what kind of haircut that is. Look, I actually kind of went back to that haircut, a little bit curlier. This was in the '90s when Kid and Play were pretty popular. So I'm doing a little bit of a yeah. That was definitely the '90s. My God, I was a nerdy kid.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that journey, man. And for all of you, here that is listening to that, I really hope that it resonates in one way or another for you and your each individual creative journeys. We're all living out that experience as a kid, and we're living it out in our lives. So thank you, man. Yes, nobody ever really dies.
I did not know that that's what NERD stood for. I love NERD. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Best.
So yeah,
Another group of synthesizers.
Yeah.
totally.
Skateboard
They
P and the
broke
crew.
genres, man. They broke genres for real. So let's move on to the core Q&A. We've got about half an hour left, and we want to try to deliver as much value to you guys as possible. So any questions that you guys have in regards to core, any challenges that you guys are dealing with, curiosities on application or process, we are here to answer any and all questions.
I got one, but I'm happy to give someone else the first shot.
Or questions for Jose or myself or Mary.
Shoot, Shaquille, just shoot it. Let's just get started.
Mhm.
All right, cool. So I started doing my own personal core at some point in the past 2 weeks. It's a bit of a blur in the middle of this like film project I've been working on, if anybody's following me on Instagram. So I kind of hit a roadblock when I got to the customer profiles section. So my question is like two-part. One, if you're working with a client that doesn't know who their customers are, what do you do at that point in your discovery phase or that part of the workshop if you're doing core with them? And then part two, what if the client is yourself?
Super funny question. In startups, my experience has been that most successful startups design their first customers themselves at a earlier time in history. I call it the Marty McFly Back to the Future issue. That you're trying to go back to the past to tell yourself what's going to happen in the future. So I do the exercise of saying, okay, let's do a profile of you, of the CEO or the founder, and what their needs are, and extrapolate from that a little bit. Sometimes that's uncomfortable for them, but it really is a good starting point. The best example for that is for when we did a series called Personal Core 2 years ago, I think now. I did me in the past, and that's something that I want to kind of share with you guys for at some point, because if you look at what we're doing right now and the manifestation of it all, the system, it's really an expression of me having done my personal core. And what I mean by that is, the what I noticed on the journey was that the core audience that was gravitating or resonating with me personally were people that my story really touched them, and that who had curly hair, who were people of color, who were other. And that insight, just that one insight, has kind of evolved towards this. And Keone, if you let me share for a second, I'll share my screen and I'll share the my personal core profiles. So again, note that the co-creator, James de Mendoza, he's kind of Afro-Caribbean. And it's really the same: make work meaningful, clarify their offering and community. It's basically my journey. That's what I just told you the story of. And then every stage, the people that I meet become, customer profiles, and we changed it here to co-creator because I just got tired of the customer kind of language or user language. It just sounds so commercial. But this was more in the whether it's male or female doesn't matter as much as they're really waking up. They're really becoming, mature kind of like human beings beyond just like, the material realm. And that's why we call it designer to wizard. And it's now kind of being able to merge those things into their practice. And then there's the person who wants to be a master teacher online. So Keone is basically kind of a manifestation of this one, even though he's not a designer, and the master teacher, even though he's not a woman. Safe space to learn and grow and teach, not to feel alone, a way to be sustainable and thrive. This is pretty much, anyone who's kind of doing this journey of wanting to share their knowledge online. So by doing those observational profiles and the people around me, and you look at the group that's gathered here, it begins to kind of enlighten like us on what we could do to create our profiles. It's us and the people directly around us. The same for a startup. If somebody wants to do something really novel and like, well, I want to target these people. Do you know those people? Do you have access to those people? You know their culture? Like, then why the hell do you want to even target them? If it's entrepreneurial, big corporations start out the same way. They start out small and kind of scale. Once you're big, you need to use the mechanics of like data and research. But if you're doing it from the point of view of being small or entrepreneurial or starting out, it's better to have direct contact and direct knowledge of who your customers are.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Great question.
I have a question. In terms of, you mentioned like multiple stakeholders. I'm wondering, how did you facilitate your core exercises for different departments, managing and balancing the energy? Because of course, at first they're not really a believer of the process, but how do you make them buy into the process and make sure that they understand what's the importance of the framework?
It's a really good one. Keone, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, the only problem is that you and I are both extremely charismatic, and the CEOs, we convince them from the beginning to let us do whatever we want, so they don't question us inside the engagement. But for someone who might not have that level of confidence to walk in with like, you're doing what I'm doing or fuck off and we're not going to do anything, that's how I kind of work with the clients, that they don't have a choice. They're going to kind of go through the process, but they also know the process because I've been teaching it now for years. So they understand, oh, can you come do that thing you do, whatever your core thing, your little core thing, come do that. Yeah, great. That's usually what happens. So educating people now, like over and over and over and over and over again, like your community around you, and doing webinars, the Patricia version and Tagalog of core, kind of like, this is how we work, like this is our process, is one way to like lay the groundwork or to prime the pump so that people are ready when you go in. The other way is in the sales process, to have it embedded into the sales process and let them know this is our discovery process. And the other way is just to have really honest, direct one-on-ones with the different managers of the different things. I'm here for you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to align. You know how difficult it is to align people. The process doesn't matter as much as doing it and talking to each other. Like what the exact process is doesn't matter as much as we do it and we get into the room and I hear out every single stakeholder and we write notes about what each person wants. Because when you reflect it back to them and say, this is what we heard from you and here's what we created based on that, like the deliverables, the design or the development, etc. Now they're like, oh, we participated in that. So they're going to be less likely to counter you than they would be otherwise. So that's so education, a lot of education early on, direct conversations with them that this is how you work, and that the goal is really to align people and to have everyone feel heard and wanted. And it's scary for leaders that are not in the mindset of that level of co-creation, or who are in Latin America, or who are in post-colonial countries, because they just want people to do what they want. That's how they understand management and leadership. And that's something that you need to talk about explicitly. Like, if you open up that conversation in your community and you say, we as post-colonial colonies of the United States and Spain have this tendency to work in a way that is, you do what I'm your boss, yo soy el patrón, and you're the worker. But we need to change that in order to be able to work better, faster. There's a lot of books that talk about that in the digital space, that you can't manage digital companies in the way that, 20th century kind of companies work, because no one's going to work with you. No one's going to, you need a team that is autonomous in order to like do your social media. They know what your goals are. They know your brand. They know your marketing goals. They know the pillars of, whatever positioning kind of work you did. They know messaging and stories. All those things got done by the team. And then you do a calendar, right? An editorial calendar of what themes you're going to have each month. And then you let the team brainstorm and come up with ideas and begin to deliver. Because what happens is that, if you have to approve every single thing, you need to pre-approve a month so that you get social media to work really effectively inside a digital organization. Or pre-approve a campaign theme and concept and what the boundaries are. Like, this is not going to work. This is going to work. Make sure you don't do this. Make sure you do this. And then let the team go at it. That's really a fundamental. So that teaching them that, the book that you can look at that talks about that, and you can pull quotes out, and you can, like, I do a lot of education when I come into clients, like, even to the degree of making posters with the themes and with like what you want people to start believing, or the framework, or the mindset. Keone and I talked about this a little bit, because people talk about it in the context of like big famous companies like Steve Jobs. He created a reality distortion field, and he was enough of like, people fell into his vision and he was able to kind of push it forward. That's doable by design inside an organization, by how you educate and how you, in every step of the process, introduce mindset ideas and shifts that need to happen. Like, starting one of your sales presentations with, as a post-colonial colony, we have the tendency to work in this way, and we can't in order to be digital. Here's a quote from the book The Connected Company, and here's why you're going to need to do it, because your team is not going to be able to do your social media fast enough to keep up, and you won't be able to do your e-commerce updates fast enough. If you don't do this, you will die, and I won't do it with you. I will only do it if we do that. That's how I sell them on that. I scare the fuck out of them, and then I tell them, but I have the solution. And they're like, oh shit, okay, got it, okay.
Yeah. So I'll share an experience I had with. I launched a company. It's a creative audio design company. They're called Formosa Group. So like Superman versus Batman and Selma and all these crazy movies. They do sound design for, and the way that I came into the client was through one of my partners who worked for the company. They were in a band together, and he's like, hey, I work for this company and they have really shitty branding and they need to rebrand themselves, and like, we're a bunch of like 30 something creative misfits, and we think that we can make an impact in the audio design space in Hollywood. And this was probably in 2012, 2013. And uh did a couple early projects for them. Ended up redoing their entire brand identity, and was the agency of record for them for about 4 years, until their values and the way that they operated really started to shift away from what I felt was aligned with my company. And we kind of had like a rocky, breakup. But we left on pretty good terms. We're like, all right, we're not good enough for each other. And so the way that we got the project was, they needed a website. So they do audio design, They do voiceover recordings. They do all of that, and they had a what do they call it? They called it they had a gaming department, and this was the division that they were going to start with. So the head of the gaming department was a guy named Chip. He was a black creative in Hollywood, which is rare. And one of the things that really aligned us right off the bat, and we just geeked out on all the games that we grew up on and playing TurboGrafx 16 and Bonk's Adventures and Neo Geo, and being the only kids that really cared about all of these games. It was a really remarkable experience, and I really really connected with him. And I had done a discovery process at the time. I hadn't learned core yet, though. I would learn core in like the next 3 or 4 months after launching that project. So I did my own sort of discovery process. We connected, we put together this really great website for them. And the feedback was, he's like, I went to Japan, we pitched a bunch of projects, we didn't get a bunch of projects. We kept the project that we were always working on, which was they did all the Metal Gear Solid franchises. So I met the guy that did Snake. Like I have that on a voicemail somewhere. I met all of the dudes that did, they did all of the Lucas or all of the Star Wars franchise voice recordings. And so like they kept those clients, but they didn't get anything new. And the feedback was the clients really, really loved the website. They thought it was one of the coolest websites. Uh, really sorry that I didn't get the job, but they're like, next time around, we really want to do something with you guys. And that feedback ended up getting up to the CEO, who was a Jewish accounting, guy in Jewish accounting background, like didn't really care about the creative, but really believed in the creatives themselves because of his personal relationships.
Is that actually a category? Jewish accounting background. It's like a college degree. What's going on?
It was, yes, it
Got
was
it.
very stereotypical in like Hollywood, because that's like totally like a persona that you deal with a lot in the movie industry. And he reached out and he's like, hey, you did a really great job. We got really good feedback. The company itself needs a new logo, and we need this, that, and the other. And I had just learned core. I'd been practicing core for like a couple months with some friends and stuff. And I was like, okay, awesome, great. So this is what I'm going to do. I'd love to take you on as a new client. We're adding this new process into our system. It is super, super important, because one of the biggest challenges that I've dealt with in launching startups is having an objective perspective on the market. And that was the big challenge, So I always use this context between subjective and objective, right? Subjective, meaning, of course, that the founder and all the folks in the belief, like, well, this is what I feel needs to happen. Objective will be like, okay, I think that's a great idea, but we need to validate that first, right? We need to validate that with our audience. We need to validate that with our customers. And so I went and I put together core for the company as a whole. And in that, we identified like our primary customers, which were based on this video game division, this gaming division that we had built out. And so we put that together. In that process, we put together a mini sales process for them. And when I presented it, like when I pitched them on the price, I put the discovery process in there, and then I put that as, I didn't charge them. I listed the price, but I didn't charge them. I said, because we're a new client, because I'm really excited to work with you, because we had great success and I really want to see you guys grow, I'm not going to charge you for this thing this time. We just want to get the project off the ground. We're going to see what we can do. And we had a great launch. Like the team was ecstatic about the logo. I still see the logos on movies. I go to the movies sometimes. Well, now we haven't been to the movies in, over a year, but it'd be dope. Like I'd go into the movies like, hey, look, that's the logo that, my agency designed. And it was really awesome. And they started to build momentum and they started to grow. Now, each division, the, Bob, the CEO, he was like, hey, Keone, this process that you did was so great. It really helped define our customers. It helped define our sales process. We're getting really great feedback from it. Like you really changed the way that we are starting, the way that we're pitching our projects and the way that we're, pitching to prospective clients. Can you do this for divisions? Absolutely. And so the challenge then became, okay, you've got this super brand, which is his main brand, and then you have a smaller division. And they ended up bringing out multiple divisions. They had a divisions for commercial. They had a division specifically for theme parks. They had a vision or a division for full-fledged movies. And so they had a division for animated films. And the way that it worked is each of these smaller divisions, we would just run core. And what we would do is we would always try to find a way to bridge the relationship between these smaller divisions as a smaller brand and then the large division as a super brand. And we would reference them. You know, I would sit in there with Bob, and then I would sit in with the division heads, right? So it wasn't the entire executives, it would just be Bob, you know, who would really sit there and he would just like do whatever he did on his computer. It was really just, he was just like a figure piece, you know, and he was basically there to say, hey, okay, I'm here to make sure that you are A, following this process for Keone and his team, and B, to recognize that you are an extension of us. So when we would go through, you know, attributes, we would go through the attributes, and then I would pull like a couple attributes from the primary brand, and I would use them to anchor them. And then in our design, we would always end up, we would extend like the color palette. So we would create all of these options for variability so that within these smaller brands, they could have their small, unique personality that was an extension of their primary super brand. And everything that we did was really about looking at the large super brand, expanding the variability to be able to bring in a personality that could be unique for the division. And then we would use that identity and we would see that identity within the division. And what was really great about it was like these smaller divisions, they felt like they had their own autonomy. They felt like they had their own personality. And each sales process was actually different. Like for commercials, it's really about who you know, right? So it's very relationship driven. So on those websites, we had up in front and center primarily photos of the staff, right? Primarily photos of the folks that were actually working, while opposed to their full-fledged movie line, film line, it was about the creative talent. So on the homepage, you know, you had a few pictures of, you know, like the executives up top, but what we had is we created this quilt of all of the creatives and all of the awards that they had won and all of the different themes that they were in. Like there were folks that worked mostly with like Ridley Scott and those deep, you know, introspective, you know, creative science fiction type of sound design. We had artists that worked in sound design more around television and serial, so they did like Star Trek. They had all these kind of crazy backgrounds. Fun fact, I got to see the synthesizer that made the very first sound designs for the very first Star Trek. So all of the sounds for beaming up, like all of that stuff, and I'm just sitting there like it was crazy. And the thing is like it's like a refrigerator. It's like a huge fridge with just a bunch of random knobs on it. But you know, like we
what's
really
the impact to the business? Because I've seen the case study and I know, and I've heard obviously.
So you know, right now, or well, the last time I talked to head of business dev, Morris Nash,
before COVID.
Before COVID, I don't know after COVID, but before COVID, they were doing about 30 million a year in revenue. And when we had started, they started at 1.5 million a year.
Got it. So they were really scaling their business and having the strategy for each of the divisions and each of the types, a lot with unique ability to sell the way that each of those different business lines sold. So for me, that's really the cause and effect fidelity. Like you really understood and got to understand their business in order to be able to design towards it and have those things manifested. So it's beautiful. It's a really great case study. Does that answer the question for Patricia? We are at 12:27, so we have 10 more minutes since we started 10 minutes late.
Yes, it answered everything. I've even gotten so much tips like from the different stakeholders. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
Totally.
Beautiful. Let's try to get one more in.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Pape has a question.
Creative briefs. Go for it. Whenever you're ready, Pape.
Oh, yeah. So, I think Marcio, he was lifting his hand first. So I think.
Oh, okay. So let's do Marcio. And we can go a little bit over just to get all these questions answered.
Yeah.
Thank you. basically, my question regards a feeling that I have speaking with business owners, and I'm just leaning into branding in the recent times, is that it's hard for them to understand the need to focus into a specific group of people to sell. For example, back in 2018, I worked with a machinery for agriculture machinery company, and the owner said, "Why can't I just advertise to everyone? Everyone might be my customer." And back then, it was already clear to me that he needed to focus to which person or to the ones that are really his main customers. And now nowadays, speaking with other friends, also business owners, they tend to. It might be due to political and economical system in Portugal. I believe people have way less money than, for example, the United States. So I believe that the need to do business, to sell, drives most owners, company owners or business owners, to try to sell to as much people as possible. I would like to for you guys to give a
how to address that in general. There's don't think it's just Portugal. That's everywhere, and that's really an industrial business mindset. And also, people are used to advertising being mass advertising. There's a perception that the more people you reach, the better it's going to be for you. But if you're in a niche market, and B2B, for example, if you're selling industrial machinery, tractors, agricultural machinery, whatever, I don't know what the exact business was. What was the exact business?
It was back in 2018. It was that not B2B, business to consumers, end users.
What were they selling though? What were they selling? What was the product?
For example, chainsaw to cut the tree.
Chainsaws. Okay, got it. Okay,
for
so
example,
it was a consumer business. Got it. It's equipment for consumers.
Yes,
for
yes.
doing
mainly. Yes.
Work. Got it. Okay. So like Husqvarna would, be, and this was a retail business, not a manufacturer.
Yes.
Got it. So retail.
He tried to be to reach producers Eastern Europe, or even in China, but he wasn't yet buying in China, but to retail here in Portugal. Yes.
Have you read Ogilvy on Advertising, that book? It's such an amazing book, Ogilvy on Advertising, because it really, like, if you're ever familiar with the sales letter or with the, an infomercial, are you a homeowner and do you have a lot of stuff in the backyard? Do you need to cut down your bushes and your trees? We have the perfect product for you. It's a Husqvarna 2800 foot of roads chainsaw, and it brings with this. That whole sequence of identifying, are you, every commercial on YouTube, hi, this is me. If you're an agency owner and you're like, I hate those commercials, but, or those ads, they start out with saying, like, who is the customer? And it's not really that you're not selling to everybody, is that you're not going to reach anyone unless the person says, oh, you're talking to me? Are you talking to me? Oh yeah, you're talking to me. Yeah, I'm a homeowner. Okay, what? Okay. Oh yeah, man, my bushes are really like crazy. Yeah. Oh, I do need a chainsaw. But the old one I have is not working anymore. I'm like, oh, cool. You have a referral, exchange program and recycling. That's really awesome, because I think that's great. So really, it's just telling them that story. It's not about like whether it's more effective or less effective to buy a bunch of ads for everyone. It's that you need to be able to communicate as clearly as possible to one individual. That's ultimately the you have to break through the noise. The education, you have to educate your clients. Going back to that.
The difficulty for me is to explain it. I understand it, but I cannot yet put it on words for myself. Mm-hmm. It's for me, it's a bit harder to explain them the need for a niche, but
one way that we're doing it, and one way that Keone and I do it, is we practice it on Tuesdays online on Clubhouse. Then we do the theme on Friday, right? Where we're already like Infinite Game last week started with a practice on Clubhouse, and we talk about it and we write it down. I wrote a Medium post about one of the topics. You know, I'm going to write a Medium post about the what we did today. So you need to start like practicing, even if it's in a journal form, and putting out content. People think content is content on its own.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm writing. I'm in a streak of 165 posts, but since my site is not yet ready regarding all this regarding branding, but it's a one a day since mid-October. I'm writing every day.
It's not about quantity either, by the way. That's one other thing. It's not about quantity.
No, but each day I think about it. Things regarding branding. For example, if I read an article from you, if I watch Keone on a discussion on Facebook, or if I read something from Fabian Geralter on LinkedIn, or Chris on YouTube, I try to think about that subject myself and to write my take on that subject. Perfect. in my journal. Yes.
Perfect. So make sure you have that when you introduce, you know, people to your discovery process, and that you have to create customer profiles. That you create customer profiles, the importance of customer profiles. So I had in the workbook, which this is a good thing about the Accelerator, because I can share the workbook, the actual workbook I use to do my discovery. Because we kind of told them how we did discovery, but the workbook was education. So each stakeholder had the workbook, and the first page before we went into the brand attributes was like a quote from Marty Neumeier on branding, and then like why brands are important, and a Nike example. Then you go to the next thing, which is the customer profiles. And there was a post on like why it's important. There was a little intro on why it's important to do customer profiles for the customers. For the most part, like the people were fairly sophisticated enough and they trusted us, but so education does work. And one thing you can also do is just do a narrow test, like create one for them and create an ad, like the whole Ogilvy thing. And Keone put the link. I think reading that book and like showing your client like a very specific scenario. I had to design a presentation for, at the time, the CEO of Disney, who was Eisner, who's a total like jackass, to explain to him what user-driven design was. I had to explain to him what customer profiles were. I had to explain to him what information architecture was. And we obviously were getting paid a lot of money. So this was when I was at Racerfish. And, you know, it was like, he basically at the end, you know, he saw the presentation. He goes, okay, that's nice. But he had some bigger questions if this was all going to work. He didn't care about the specifics. So you have to do customer profiles. Do a customer profile of that particular person, the person who doesn't believe in like, you know, segmentation, or in, you know, it's not even niching, it's just customer segmentation. And then see what their needs are, and then start to create content around that. Yeah.
Just to end my take on this, you mentioned Nike. I think everyone's view of Nike is that they sell to everybody. They don't sell to everybody, despite they advertise worldwide, but they do not sell to everyone. So I think that might be a bit of that confuses people, that they think that Nike is selling to everyone. No, they're not. The price tag is not available for everyone. The kind of products is not for everyone. Well, it's not for everyone. Every brand is not for everyone. I understand that. I'm just having.
That's slightly different. I was talking about branding with Nike as an example. In the customer profile, I wasn't using Nike as an example. I was using digital. I was using user experience. Like user experience is the best, you know, because it's and people that are in the mindset of I just do advertising in my local newspaper, and I do an ad in this. Those people don't have the level of sophistication to understand, you know, how the web works, and that they're only getting content that's super relevant to them, you know, via search, via, you know, content management that's dynamic. The page that they're getting might be completely personalized to them. So that's the reason you need to do customer profiles in a modern, you know, marketing ecosystem, because you're going to really be actually trying to speak specifically to a specific person. So that's the education, without mentioning Nike, just really focus on user experience.
So let me just rephrase and mentioning another company. I've read Fabian Geralter is bigger than this, and he mentioned several companies. I know, I'm not sure if you. Well, it came from. I saw the interview in the future, so I've read the book after. And for example, Poppin, I believe it's a brand here.
Yeah, I know the founder.
And and he mentions exactly that, those touch points, even an email you receive after the confirmation of your buying. So all of that helps. Perhaps targeting, perhaps understanding that user journey that you're referring. If I'm understanding correctly.
Totally, yeah, totally.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a very good question.
Yeah,
comes up a lot.
Pape.
Yeah, so it's going to be almost a year since I started doing core, and I'm getting more involved into this brand and design world. Before I was just doing murals and illustrations. And man, it's been like quite a ride, because I've realized that design is pretty broad as everything, you know, like from packaging to naming to, I mean, you name it, that's something to specialize. So when I'm building the brief and I have deliverables saying, let's say my first deliverables are naming and brand identity, or the name goes with the brand identity, is how, first, what is a brief? I would like to listen to your definition to understand it more, because I'm not related to any agency work. I've never worked for an agency. I have no idea what a brief is, and I translate it as a like conclusion. And what is a brief, and how can I, like, if I'm understanding right, I'm building the story of the brand and the concept with the attributes, and I'm just gluing it together to move forward into, let's say, the naming. I will have the concepts, and from that I will start taking the names, and from also those concepts I will get some visual references that will start coming together and building the concept of the brand. Is that correct? Or I would love to hear from you guys.
This is something that Mary's really also really good at, because we do briefs very differently. I mean, Keone, I don't know how, I've seen your briefs, so they're similar. It's a lot of it is summary, but from an agency standpoint, like if you look at traditional briefs, they're going to have like who the client is, what's the market, what's the problem you're trying to solve, like, you know, what are the ways that you're solving it, and if there's any work on the summary of the brand and of customer profiles, they're in there. So really think of the brief as the orders. You know, you're a general and you're going to tell your army to go take this hill. They're going to give you as many details about the hill as possible. One of the things that we included in briefs that were post-discovery for execution in a digital context were things like, who's the team and what are their roles and responsibilities? Who do you communicate with? You know, who's going to be the communication points for the teams, or called a project charter? You know, how often do we meet? You know, when are the presentations? Like, just logistics like that are always in the brief. Once you have some of those things settled in, or like, you know, that are less, also every agency and every execution type has a slightly different version of a brief. For an example, of marketing, a brief for a video, like a motion graphics piece, is going to be very different than a brief for a social media campaign, right? Some briefs, and we saw this in the Everyone rebrand, just have way too much information and the designers barely look at them. So I am super ADD, so I used to create briefs really visually, and I would do, like, I'll share my screen real quick. I'm going to share one for City Search, and City Search at some point was struggling, and they hired a few companies, a few agencies to do some explorations of their identity. So City Search, if you know, it's not that popular anymore. It's owned by Barry Diller's company, the same company that does like Match.com, etc. I'm not sure what it's called now, but and I have a ton of briefs, and I'm really excited to. I'm happy to share them with you, Pape. But I'm excited to have the Accelerator program so that we can drop them in there. More contemporary ones, more current ones. So like, here's the agenda, you know, the goal about the company, the brand space that they're in, users, brand idea, references, freestyle thoughts for the interface, for identity, for icons. This was to give it to a team that was doing like, so this is the what is. Our mission is to do this, you know, and here were the people that were leading it. And I do the brief, and then I would do a go-to meeting with the design team, because we worked with a lot of remote teams at the time, or record it and then just send them the recording of me reviewing the brief for them, just like I would want that. So here's the current, this was the current design, which was super fugly, and they were trying to kind of modernize it. They said this, they wanted to compete with these companies because of, you know, Zappos, which we mentioned, Mint at the time was just super hot, and Yelp was taking their lunch. The reason why we were in that meeting is because Yelp was beating them in terms of traffic and revenue. So we created customer profiles the same way, slightly different than, you know, we usually do them, but doesn't matter. The brand, we call them brand idea buckets, you know, and we put the brand statement at the bottom. We did this all with them, with the executives in their office. It's here in Hollywood. Then we did references, you know, references as to, like, you know, things that we liked. The creative director, Seth, and I we just basically got together and said, okay, what sites do you like? Oh, we also asked the client, and they actually gave us a bunch of things that they actually liked. Because the executives, you know, are also just like us. They're like, you know, human beings. So you really ultimately, and Mary, you can share that. So freestyle thoughts.
I just put in there in the chat.
Say it out loud. Say it out loud.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, the point of the whole thing is just like, if you have people working across different teams that are, you know, involved in the project, and stakeholders, especially stakeholders across the business that are, you know, that have a stake in the outcome of whatever you're going to design or produce, that you certainly like can use the brief as a method to just align everybody before you get started, you know, so you're not spinning your wheels, and you can like go back to that brief when you're looking at, you know, potential solutions. You can use it as a leverage point to like validate whether or not you're on track. You know, is it meeting the goal? Is it addressing the user? Is it like serving the purpose the business needs? So that like who, what, why is definitely, like, in my opinion, like the most critical part of the brief. It's like, who are you doing it for? What are you doing? And why are you doing it? So it incorporates the business reason, the user reason, the brand. And then, you know, you could add in all these other things, all these other layers of information to keep, to like further align the team. And that would be like showing what the competitors are doing, what you're going to do differently, you know, what the value proposition is, you know, looking at all these sort of references, like what you want to emulate or avoid, from a perspective of like execution, everything from like the brand messaging to execution. It could have like tone and personality, all sorts of stuff that you detail out, but like the basics are just like who, what, why, you know? Yeah.
No, that actually helps a lot, Mary, because I'm not working like with huge companies. Like I'm working really close with the stakeholders. Yeah. And I might have to work with a designer for creating the identity, but mostly I'm just trying to align with the stakeholders and to, for example, if I'm presenting a reference, to understand that that is the right way, the right solution, and that I won't find that wall later in the process. So thanks a lot for that.
Yeah, I mean, and like ultimately it kind of helps you stay out of the like, well, I like this and that guy likes that and that yellow turns me off or whatever, but the yellow might be like the right color because it really is the color that the users are going to be, you know, most attracted to, or that reflects like the brand the most. And then when you have it in a brief, you can leverage that brief to like justify the reasons why you made those choices. And I think that's the most interesting part of doing the brief actually as a designer, because, you know, I mean, we all want to do what we want to do and make art, and we all have our styles and stuff, but you're trying to really solve a problem, you know? and like and like a lot of times in a visual way. And so there's that great book, like The Art of Visual Perception, you know, and there's like a science behind it, you know. It's not just like red is red and that's just a random color that you choose because, you know, you like it. You make these choices to use these symbols and compose the design in a way that is going to have elicit or like you know a reaction from someone, you know, or like help them through an experience, you know. So
I use the psychology of color all the time when I recommend
yeah,
a color.
yeah,
Like I'll actually put the color palette that I'm recommending, and I will put and I'll put references from the psychology of color and the brand attributes. I go, okay, your brand attribute was, you know, excited and joyous. It's not going to be black and like, you know, dark purple because, you know, that doesn't make sense. But also sometimes it can be literal. You have to be unique as long as you have some backup. You know, think of it as a scientific method, like you're trying to prove, you know, your hypotheses that this is the direction that it should be into them. Yeah. And I have so many briefs. It's not even funny. Keone, what are your thoughts on briefing briefly?
So, you know, coming from a space where, you know, I'm creative but not artistically trained, and I worked with a team of creatives, like both of my partners in my agency, even though one was in development and he was trained in graphic design. And so I struggled early on because I think about it so linearly and logical, and because I'm polymathic, um, I would put too much in the creative brief, and that was a
I've seen
challenge
them.
that I learned. Right? It's really really key that you're looking to put as much information as necessary. Right? You're not trying to give them the overall expansive, you know, vision that you see. Like it's not. This is not the infinite vision. This is the what. Right? What is it that we are building in this time and now with the team and the skills that they have and the goals that we want to accomplish in this engagement. Right? And so, you know, like what I try to do is like I try to drill like really really deeply into what like the theme is. So I do like cultural themes in mind, but I'll give examples of the cultural theme. You know, I would do like, if we were referencing design, I would be like, okay, this is the era of design that we're referencing, and these are the artists that we're referencing. Right? So it was very very specific references for the creatives to be able to dive in and understand, like in a visual way, which was important. That was another thing that I had to learn, was if you're dealing with designers, to give them the visual references, not the intellectual references, because then they'll get stuck in their head and they'll be all over the place. This is actually a brand that I did.
This is a Keone style brief.
Yeah.
Brand positioning, mission statement, vision statement, product overview, flavor profiles, any information that needs to be in their attributes, media touch points, messaging, with taglines. I really like that. Hashtags, brand DNA. They put stylescapes in it. They put references for photography. I mean, and it got to a really good point. There were some nuances in terms of what the execution needed to be. That at the end was about flexibility, but it's a very good brief actually. And you know, briefs are funny because you need to really know your team. You need to know the audience well to kind of like, if it's a designer who really struggles with, you know, too much information, you want to keep it as narrow as possible. I use astrology to figure that out. Like, okay, this designer is not gonna really be that. Okay, I'm gonna just be really simple. Like, here's a wireframe. Here's a few references. Here's a color palette. Here's some fonts. Go experiment and try some stuff out. So, but you're designing a lot of it, I think, right? You're really using it just to convince your client.
Yes, it's
perfect.
It mostly I finished the discovery phase last week, and I'm just delivering. I want to have another meeting for setting up the conclusions. How I'm thinking, how I'm translating all the information. That if they said contemporary, what do I understand from contemporary? As Keone said,
yeah.
What does contemporary means in a design concept, in an architectural concept, in a historical concept? If they said being connected to nature, what does connected means and how does it, the nature, our environment, our context in Panama for the project means. And I'm just building the story to like present it to them and then move forward to the first deliverable will be naming. And yeah, I'm also, but I think I will divide the first conclusion and the naming brief for myself. Like what I can see from this is I'm just trying to put one brief for everything. And what I'm understanding is just for every, let's say, strategy, like I would use a different brief.
That's a good approach, and I do that. Like I translate the attributes into references so that I say, okay, this is what I'm thinking when when I'm using this attribute. I did that for the everyone. I did many briefs for everyone. I did them for different stages of the. And I had it actually right here. Now I can't find it, but I can share that with you in the core tribe, the everyone brief, or I can put it on Google Slides. I think it's already there. It was really ultimately one step after doing the exercises, showing what the possibilities are in a narrow subset. So this is what playful means. Here's what I'm thinking for playful. And then you show it to the client and they're like, ooh, I like that image. So then now you have like an energy sense of like what the options are. For me, it's almost like an eye test. It's like this, or this one, or this one, this one, or this one. And then measuring their energy like, ooh, you like that? Okay, cool. That's really the setup that I always use. It's like 3 stylescapes. What do you like from each of them? And I listen and they'll write it down. So it's a very unfolding and emergent process of listening to your client and of collaborating with them. It's not about getting it right. It's about saying the truth. Like, here's what I think the translation is. Here's what, a lot of people panic or freeze up because they have to translate in the brief. You have to make decisions and put directions in place. I do that at least. Like I actually start setting the direction to the team in the brief. Mary does it really well too. And Keone's briefs are awesome. So yeah. And knowing your audience. So if it's just the stakeholder, just give them options and work out your thinking on paper in a keynote before you say, so here's what I'm thinking, and get really excited about it. So we set this attribute here. What do you think about these type of images? And what do you think of these fonts? And what do you think of these colors? Like do it like an architect does. I learned that from architects, by the way. They do like these material boards and they show them to the client and they walk through and they touch them and it's very tactile. And you're like, ooh, yeah, I like this. And clients like that, especially small businesses who, aren't used to all this process being digital and being very formal. They just like, oh, you're including me and I'm getting to play with you and you're a creative person. Yay.
Yeah. One of them is an architect. And I mean, when we go to the user, to the client, it was just amazing. It's like he had a sniper. He was just, he was so specific about the needs, he was just giving solutions. The document was like really precise. And I'm actually also leaning a lot to like presenting like the attributes, but also through the set of mind of this customer that is a really high-end premium client, loves art, like professional fishing, like all of this. And I'm like looking at references of marinas, of luxury villas in Bali and all this to understand how this client sees what is his context. And that's something I want to blend in, and also helping the architect manifest his vision, because I know he has a vision for contemporary tropical like vision, and I'm just leaning into that. So
I'm loving that. I'm loving this. I love contemporary tropical. And so it's like, I'm from the Caribbean, so I'm looking forward to seeing this. It's like, it's beautiful. Thank you for that question. Keone, take it away. Let's wrap this thing up.
Yeah, guys. So, let's share screen. So get into the upload, but let's leave it on this note. As we leave and we end today's session, I'd love for you guys to think about what change are you driven to lead in the world, and how core can take you there. So really thinking about your own journey, your own experiences as a child, and how you're living them in the real world, how you're living them in the now. So as always, this is brought to you by Core. Coresmagic.com is where you can find the magic. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're on Instagram. We're on all the interwebs, at Jose Caballer, at Keone Chong, at Mary Gribbin. The hashtag's Coresmagic, and we are the Systm. And then I'm going to leave you with a little bit of a sneak peek of what the inside of the Accelerator group is looking like. So we have all of these sections and all of these incredible activities. We still need to figure out what's going to be available. But these are, this is an insight into a lot of the things that we want to be able to provide for you guys. So yeah, don't forget, we're also on Facebook at the Core Tribe. So check us out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, much love. Mucho amor.
Yeah, we should do that in Spanish.
Yeah.
That's a funny one. In all the languages. Thank you, everybody, for being here and staying a little extra late.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
We appreciate you.
A little bit of music to let us out.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. See you back in Core Tribe.
See you guys soon.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Hi, Adriana. It's nice to see you. Oh, I'm glad it was inspiring, Adriana. It's always really nice to see you. Just because of the name, Adriana Itzel Delgado, like Jose Abraham Caballer, Mauricio Cardona. Like all these names, like, are so amazing. Love you. Marcio Guerra is pretty cool too, actually, like Manunis Guerra. Another
Do you know that it means war, right? Guerra.
Oh, yeah. I figured that out, yeah.
Literal for war.
Weapons of
Thank
mass
you, Mary.
creation.
Weapons of mass creation. Yeah, I love that.
That's nice. That's nice. Okay, guys. Bye-bye.
Later.
Cheers
Bye-bye,
to
guys.
Portugal.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Wrap it up.
Thank you.